She's really such a useless woman.
My hand froze as I was about to take a bite of my omelet when I overheard a conversation from the table behind me at a cafe.
She has no clue I'm in love with you behind her back.
It was my husband's voice. No way. Is this an affair? My heart started racing, and I felt dizzy. I could hear the laugh of a young woman mixed with my husband's mocking comments about me. Cold sweat started to run down my back, and I instinctively tried to get up from my seat.
Or rather, about that thing.
Oh, the plan, right? It's going smoothly, and Catherine doesn't even suspect a thing. It's all happening gradually and surely.
Hearing my name from my husband's mouth made me swallow hard.
I do feel a little bad about sacrificing someone who has nothing to do with this, but hey, it's all for our happiness, right? No other choice.
Yeah, exactly. I feel bad for Catherine, but I can't waste time worrying about the sorrow of a discarded woman. Who cares what she loses, right?
Sacrifice. What are they talking about? I discreetly placed my phone on the table and hit the record button. My name is Catherine. I'm a 30-year-old former nurse. After my mom passed away, I started working as an office worker in my hometown. I work remotely about half the week, living a full life between work and household chores. I've been married to my husband, David, for 5 years. He's always treated me kindly, works hard, and doesn't complain when we visit my dad on our days off. He's the ideal husband, almost too perfect for me. My mother passed away 3 years ago, and my dad now lives alone. He has finally started smiling again recently. For a while after Mom's death, Dad spent his days locked in his room, staring at the paintings she loved. But lately, he's been going out and buying paintings that remind him of her, one by one. Dad's naturally cheerful and sociable personality has led him to meet many fellow art lovers. Still, I make sure he doesn't feel too lonely by visiting him weekly with David, and the three of us spend time together.
You found another beautiful painting, right?
Yeah, David, I stumbled upon this one in a store by chance. Catherine's mom loved these flowers. It was a bit pricey, but I couldn't resist.
Oh, Dad, another expensive buy. Mom's probably shaking her head at you.
Well, you can take money with you when you go. Besides, it's like I'm spending it on her, not on the painting.
Dad doesn't really have an eye for art. He buys from a broker Mom trusted when she was alive, so there's no doubt that the price is quite steep. What a hassle, I thought to myself, and then casually glanced over at my husband. There's that look again. For about the past month, my husband has always shown that same expression during these family moments. David, who never had any interest in paintings since we got married, now seems to be holding on to some special feeling, different from a mere hobby or casual interest. That look on his face made me feel uneasy.
Catherine, over here, over here.
As I stepped through the station gates, a familiar, comforting voice reached my ears. Hey, Heather, don't shout so loud, it's embarrassing. And by the way, some people just turned around. Maybe they're all named Catherine too. As I laughed, making a lighthearted joke, my childhood friend Heather gave me a slightly embarrassed smile. After exchanging a few words, we naturally began walking in the same direction. Heather got divorced about 2 years ago and is now raising her child as a single mom. Her friendly personality and quick wit haven't changed a bit, and even after not seeing her for a while, being around her still felt effortless.
Even the door to this place is just like it used to be. Oh, it's so nostalgic.
The two of us stopped in front of a cafe that had a charming, retro atmosphere. We had visited countless times when Heather sought advice about her ex-husband's affair. The warmth of the wood and the comforting aroma of coffee inside hadn't changed a bit from back then. As soon as we sat down, Heather immediately said, "An omelet, please." Her order reminded me of the many times she'd ordered the same dish, and for some reason, it made my heart flutter a little. "I'll have an omelet too." Heather nodded enthusiastically, looking at me with a joyful, childlike grin. Not long after, 2 plates of omelet, bright yellow like little dresses, were placed in front of us. We were happily chatting, reminiscing about old times, taking bite after bite of the steaming omelet mixed with the scent of ketchup. But then, a man's voice calling out, "Excuse me," to the waiter made my world freeze for a moment. "David?" The staff walked over to the table behind me. Occasionally, I could hear a woman's voice too. I wanted to casually glance back and confirm, but the cafe's decor and plants blocked my view. As I tried to focus on Heather's conversation, I found myself straining to listen to the voices behind us instead. Noticing my shift in attention, Heather started to listen too.
Hey, isn't David the same name as your husband?
"Yeah, and I know the name Emily and her voice too. She's a younger colleague of mine and has visited our home a few times. Every time, David would drive her to the station, saying it's unsafe for a woman to walk alone, but I never thought." Emily was popular among the male staff at work, so there were always rumors about her romance. Without missing a beat, Heather suddenly pulled out her phone, quickly opened a recording app, and discreetly placed it beside her half-eaten omelet. Heather's quick thinking was always sharp in moments like this.
Catherine, are you okay with this?
I silently watched as Heather's finger pressed the record button. It didn't take long for our suspicions to turn into certainty. Loving words exchanged between them. The occasional sound of lips meeting. And jokes at the expense of the poor clueless Catherine, as they made fun of me for being too oblivious.
Catherine.
Heather gently dabbed a tissue over the small pool of tears forming on my clenched fists. David's laughter snapped me back to reality, and I quietly left the cafe with Heather. I don't know how long we walked, but we eventually found ourselves drawn to a bench in a park bathed in the glow of the setting sun, where we sat down. "Heather, can you play the recording from earlier?"
Catherine, yeah?
As soon as the recording finished playing, I took a deep breath. Time to enjoy the single life. I forced a smile at Heather, trying to appear strong. We parted ways at the station gate, with her looking worried. On the train ride home, I couldn't stop replaying the conversation between David and Emily in my head. It wasn't just their affectionate exchanges that bothered me, but something Emily said that I couldn't quite figure out.
"I've got what David asked for." I'm sure Catherine's dad is just as clueless as she is.
I didn't know what she meant, but I had a gut feeling my dad might get caught up in this. I went right past my house and headed straight to my dad's place. Dad was surprised by my sudden visit, but as he looked into my face, he seemed to understand something. He gently patted my head, comforting me like a child.
Don't worry, I'm on your side. Your mom's with you too.
As tears I'd been holding back began to spill, I buried my face in his chest and cried out loud. Once I calmed down, I told him everything that had happened that day, and what he revealed took me by surprise. For about a month now, David had been calling my dad directly. Most of the conversations were about the paintings Dad owned. David would ask things like, "How much are they actually worth?" Or do you know where I could buy a replica since the originals are too expensive? Apparently, the last time we visited together, while I stepped out of the room, David took the chance to ask about the prices of several paintings. Grabbing my phone, I decided to call Heather again, wanting to check the recording once more. Eek. As soon as I grabbed my phone, the ringtone echoed. The caller was Heather. Hello, Heather. Thanks for today. So, about that recording.
Hey, your husband and that woman Emily might sell your dad's painting without permission.
What are you talking about? Calm down and explain. After we parted at the station, Heather, thinking of me, went back to the cafe to try and talk to David. However, he was no longer there, and after searching the area, she spotted David near a gallery by the station, holding a painting and walking hand in hand with Emily. When she followed them, they went into a nearby burger shop and spent time together like a couple, just as they did earlier in the day. David apparently said this about the painting they had bought earlier.
No one would think this is a fake. With what Emily prepared and everything, it'll be worth a few $1,000s. I'll switch all of them when I get the chance to visit the house again. Then we can sell them off and start our life together with the money.
Heather recorded everything but was so stunned by what she heard that she couldn't act and broke down crying on the phone. Heather, don't cry. I'm just glad you weren't caught up in it. Thank you. David, I'll never forgive you. After ending the call with Heather, which felt like the final blow, I made up my mind. Hey, Dad. Later that night, David came home as if nothing had happened, carrying what he called materials for work next week. I began making his dinner with the biggest smile, saying, "Thanks for working so hard every day." Yes, I played a part of the butt of their jokes with all my might, just as David and Emily would want. Oh, by the way, David, my dad's friend is hosting an art exhibition, and I thought I'd tag along. I wanted you to come too, but it's a bit last minute, so it might be tough, huh?
Yeah, I'd love to go, but I can't really take time off right now. Such a shame.
I could see the smug grin hidden behind David's words. Right? I think my dad will enjoy catching up with his friend. I'm planning on staying a night or two. Is that okay?
Of course. Next time, I'll try to get some time off too. Have a great time.
Thanks. Oh, and could you water the plants my dad cherishes while I'm away? Here's the key, just in case. I set a trap, making David believe I was going on a trip with my dad. Feigning exhaustion, I went to bed early to hide my racing heart.
Hey, Catherine, David, thanks for coming.
Under a perfectly clear sky, my dad greeted us at the door with a wide smile.
I'm sorry I couldn't go together, but don't worry, I'll take care of the plants. Oh, and I'll drive you to the station.
No need, it's such a nice day. I'll walk with Catherine. Do a great job at work.
After exchanging a few cryptic words, I took my dad's hand and started walking toward the station. My feelings for David, our marriage up to this day. I took it all in slowly, savoring every thought. As we turned the corner, we discreetly watched David to see what he would do next. Once we were out of sight, he quickly made a phone call. I couldn't hear the conversation, but there it was, David's familiar smile. The same smile he used to give me when he whispered sweet things early in our marriage. The smile he showed only to me. After ending his call, David opened the trunk of his car and started taking something out. It's that painting. My father and I exchanged glances without saying a word.
It's okay. We'll get the evidence.
I had already asked my father to set up my phone in recording mode in the room, ready to capture everything. While David was going back and forth between the car and the house several times, I saw a woman running toward the car, holding something. Emily. Without even needing to see the woman's face, my heart whispered her name. And I quickly realized she was carrying the painting she had prepared. When David returned to the car and saw Emily, he pulled her close without a care for who might see and kissed her. After confirming their love for each other, they walked hand in hand into the house. As I stood there, something cold ran down my cheek, and I snapped back to reality. At my feet, there was a small puddle, a stark contrast to the clear blue sky above. "Let's go, Dad." My father, who had already been hurt by all of this because of me. Heather, who had cried for my sake. And the precious memories of my late mother. I wouldn't let anyone take my happiness away any longer. Even though it was the familiar entrance to my father's house, I knew the scene beyond the door was going to be something different, something I never should have had to see. Suppressing my emotions, I took a deep breath, and as I opened the door, I saw a pair of flashy high heels, haphazardly discarded in a way that didn't belong in my father's home. Before I could even process the discomfort of what I saw, the sound of lovers' voices filled the air from the back of the house. They were coming from the room where the paintings were kept. Understanding everything, I took out my phone and started recording.
Oh my gosh.
As soon as I opened the door to the room, Emily's piercing scream echoed through the house.
Catherine, why?
Though they had hastily covered themselves with a blanket, there was no mistaking the two naked figures that had been wrapped up in their illicit love.
What the hell are you two doing?
I wanted to run away from what was happening before my eyes. But that feeling quickly vanished, replaced by a wave of indescribable emotion that made me feel sick to my stomach.
Catherine, don't worry. Everything's being recorded.
When my father checked the phone we had hidden, there they were, David and Emily, smiling as they switched the paintings. Every word, every action, even their moment of passion, was recorded clearly. I know everything. I have all the evidence. I'll show this to my lawyer and both of your families. They tried to mutter some weak excuses, barely audible like the hum of mosquitoes, but I didn't pay any attention. I kept pointing the camera at David and Emily, recording everything. And then, with all the emotion I could muster, I shouted, "If you don't want to get sued, divorce me right here and now." After the divorce was finalized, David called me several times. I reluctantly answered David's call just once and gently told him, "You haven't realized we're divorced. How sad. You're so clueless." Of course, I didn't show the recorded video to their parents as evidence, but I did report the entire situation. As for David and Emily, all the love they once had seemed to vanish, and they immediately started blaming each other, saying it's your fault, and no, it's yours. Then, Emily, in a hysterical rage, stormed into my father's house, yelling at the top of her lungs. The commotion was so intense that the neighbors gathered around, asking, "What's going on?" Embarrassed, Emily had no choice but to leave, having completely humiliated herself. Emily's fury didn't stop there. She stormed into David's office, shouting, "It's all David's fault that I'm in this mess." She caused such a scene that everyone got involved, and as a result, the entire office found out the real reason for our divorce. David was left to face daily scornful looks from his colleagues. I later found out that David and Emily had been counting on the money from selling the paintings. They had both been racking up debt and spending recklessly. In the end, they never got any money from the paintings, and they were left with mounting debt and alimony payments to me. Unable to handle it, the two of them quickly broke up and moved away, leaving behind their tarnished reputations. As for me, I decided to move in with my father to help with his health and take care of the paintings. Dad, you're grinning happily again, aren't you? His gaze was on the thank you letters from children and a painting of flowers, displayed alongside his most cherished artwork. After I moved in, my father decided to keep only a few of his most important paintings, giving the rest away to his friend. One of their destinations apparently was the hospital where I used to work. And the children in the pediatric ward had given him that painting as a thank you gift. He said he gave away the paintings because the house is a bit small for the two of us, but I could tell he was reflecting on everything that had happened. Dad, you're so stubborn. But thank you. As life started to settle down, I arranged to meet Heather for the first time since everything happened. I'm running late. I hope Heather isn't mad. When I opened the door, the familiar warmth of the wooden cafe and the gentle aroma of coffee welcomed me, along with one of my father's paintings.